Thompson. Welcome to Wake Up Charlotte to Go. We have a special guest this morning, Alicia Allman, a physician assistant from StarMed, is joining us this morning. And we're going to be talking about any number of health issues that you may be interested in, but specifically we're talking about the change we're about to see in weather and how it affects our health. Because today, I think it's supposed to, Larry Sprinkle said it's supposed to get like almost 80 degrees today. And then here in a few days, I think it's going to be down like in the 30s consistently. So to be expected at this point, it is mid-November, but nonetheless, want to get you prepared. So if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, Alicia's going to be happy to answer them over the next 5 to 10 minutes. So just let us know. You can put them in the comments section on YouTube or Facebook, whichever platform you're on. First of all, Alicia, let's get started. Is it an old wives' tale that the cold weather change can actually impact us, or does it actually have some sort of impact on our health?
There is some truth to it, but maybe not as full as we once attributed. So you can't really get sick, or in vast majority of cases, cannot get sick from just being outside or from going hot to cold weather. You may notice if you're outside and it's cold, you may get a runny nose. That's actually just your nose producing a little more mucus to keep you moist in there. Doesn't necessarily mean you've come down with a cold right there just from walking outside in the cold weather. But colder, drier air does have an impact on our mucosal tissue that protects us in our nose and respiratory tract. So there is some truth to it, but maybe not what our older generations used to tell us about. You'll get sick if you go in the cold, or you'll get sick if you go hot to cold. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. All right, good to know. Noted already. Learning something already. Is it also the reason why my skin seems so dry lately and getting chapped lips?
Yes, me too. So we do need to make sure we're staying well hydrated, drinking plenty of fluids. If you seem to have an even more difficult time with drier air, you can also put a humidifier in your bedroom at night to help keep you moist. But yes, just generally colder, drier air outside does affect us even when we're inside. And especially if you're inside in a work environment or at home where we have, heating and cooling, those mechanisms still let the air become dry. So you may want to use a humidifier if you feel like that's bothering you. Might get an itchy nose or itchy throat with being dry on top of that dry skin and dry lips, like you mentioned.
We've got a lot of parents trying to get their kids out the door right now and on the bus. Feels perfectly decent this morning, but as we mentioned, the forecast big changes in the next few days. What do you recommend parents do when it comes to their kids? What's a safe thing to do when it comes to the colder temperatures and getting them, warmed up in proper layers?
Yes, I am a mom too, and sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle. Somebody doesn't want to wear their hat or their scarf or their gloves. But if they're only going to be outside for a few minutes or a little while, not that big of a deal. If it's a big fight, don't push it. They will most likely be fine. But if they're going to be outside for a long time, like if you're going somewhere that you'll be outdoors and it's a little chilly, try extra hard to get them to wear enough layers to stay warm, because we don't want their extremities getting colder and just kind of bothering them, getting them uncomfortable. But if it's a short period of time, don't necessarily have to use so many layers like the movie A Christmas Story.
Right, right. That's a great analogy. So tell me. So then, whether it's your kids or grown-ups, whoever it is the real risk of being outside in the cold just basically you're going to be miserable, you're going to get cold, and maybe you get hypothermia or frostbite or something like that.
Right.
It's not necessarily going to make you sick.
Right. It's more being having some discomfort, and yes, in extreme cases, frostbite affecting the fingers and the toes. But yes, if you're outside in the cold, like I said, you might get a little runny nose temporarily just from your own nose trying to moisten itself. But most of the time, you can't get sick, really. Now, I will say there are some special populations, like if your child has issues with sinus infections or allergies so bad that they get sinus infections frequently, or if your child suffers from asthma, cold, dry air can actually trigger those two problems, sinus problems and asthma. So if you have a child that suffers from those kinds of ailments, then you might want to take extra precaution, pack the things they need, keep them warm, and if they have asthma, keep their inhaler on them.
You bring up a good point when it comes to like seasonal asthma and say bronchitis for
Yes.
some folks. The cold air can have an impact.
Yes, absolutely. So asthma is known to be triggered by cold, dry air. So make sure you have your asthma inhalers prescriptions filled and ready to go. You don't want to wait till those symptoms start before you ask your doctor for a refill or go looking. We want to make sure that those airways stay open and you can breathe comfortably. Now, bronchitis and pneumonia, those are infections in the lungs. Those happen after germs get in. And again, like I said, just because you're in the cold doesn't mean you'll get an infection. But if you have contact with some germs, in addition to this cold, dry air makes it easier for us to get infections. We're inside more. So we're kind of, closer to each other. And if somebody has some germs, we might pick up those germs and develop a bronchitis or a pneumonia.
Yeah, Joy commenting in the comment section, I breathe better than cold, fewer allergies. So I guess it's just an individual, person by person basis.
Yes, the fall is spring and fall are the most common times for allergies, but there are some patients who suffer from non-seasonal allergies where they have allergic rhinitis all year long. So I am happy for anyone who doesn't suffer all year long because it means there's an end in sight in this fall weather.
Right. Listen, I know at StarMed, you guys have been like leading the way when it comes to this pandemic and getting people vaccinated and
Yes.
testing and all the way. Help us understand, folks, what's the difference between if you've got cold symptoms or if you've got perhaps COVID symptoms?
That is a tricky one because COVID likes to be tricky and present itself in different ways for different patients. I've had, the whole gamut from asymptomatic COVID to mild cold symptoms to, very severe cases needing hospital care. It really can range. So it's almost impossible to tell. I will say if you have a fever, more likely to be COVID or another more serious illness that can cause a fever. Colds rarely cause a fever, but can. And then, of course, the loss of sense of smell and taste. That's one of those symptoms that COVID causes most often where the colds and flus don't cause loss of smell and taste. So that's one set of symptoms that's a little easier to distinguish. But I think, this year we'll probably still have to do a lot of testing to determine if it's COVID or not, unfortunately.
Got it. And we fell back in time this week, so it's getting dark at 5 o'clock in the evening, and
Yes.
sort of sad for all of us. How do you know if you're actually suffering seasonal depression versus just I'm bummed out that it's dark and so early and I'm missing out on daylight?
Yes. So yes, the condition called seasonal affective disorder, SAD. This is characterized by a change in mood affecting your day-to-day life that you feel, like you said, a little more down, a little more depressed, maybe difficulty getting out of bed, or loss of interest in your usual activities. And it could be because of the weather changing, that grayer coloration, that less sunlight, which we all know sunlight is good for you. But these are things that are typical for depression, but mostly happen because the season has changed to the colder winter months. And it's more common than you think. And if you feel like there's a change in your mood, it's worth going to have a visit with your provider. Come to StarMed. We can talk about it and see if you have the symptoms that characterize seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah, I know it affects a lot of people, more people than you might realize. So,
yes.
Alicia Allman, thanks for coming on and thanks for chatting with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Have a great morning, everyone.
All right. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye.